There are stories of strange humanoid creatures circulating around the internet. These entities sometimes look like us, and at other times are a warped version of what a human being should be. No one is certain where they come from. No one knows what they want. But what is certain is that they will come for us in the loneliest of places, and they will not stop until they scare us to death. Here are 5 terrifying humanoid encounters. Pretend friend. Megan was 10 years old the first time the girl appeared. Though she never gave her a name, Megan called her Purity. Purity was a girl of similar age, with long black greasy hair, a pale face, and a white lace dress that was torn and dirty. At first, Megan was apprehensive about the girl, but Purity would come and visit her regularly regardless. Eventually, Purity became a firm friend of Megan's, but there was just one problem. No one else was able to see her. When Megan asked Purity where she lived, she said that it was somewhere in the woods, and she was cold there. After that, whenever Purity appeared, Megan would feel an icy chill go through her entire body. As Megan got older, Purity appeared less and less. But as Purity faded, she grew angry with Megan, accusing her of abandoning her best friend. Megan began to feel conflicted about her. She felt sorry for her, but also feared her. Megan began to suspect that Purity was very different from other girls that she knew. In fact, she started to feel that she wasn't human at all. Purity finally vanished from Megan's life. That is, until the age of 18, when Megan found her own diary from when she was a kid. In it, she had written down details about Purity, and in one entry, she had even drawn a picture of her. The strange thing was, the girl that she drew had only half a body, floating in the air. Megan later saw Purity again and felt her anger, and ever since then, she's tried to block her from her mind, but it seems that Purity isn't quite done with Megan just yet. Abducted while camping. Back in 2016, Will was on a camping trip in California with a friend called Jason. They pitched their tents in a remote area where they knew they wouldn't see anyone for days, if not weeks. One night, around 10 p.m., Will and Jason stared up at the stars, both talking about whether there's any life out there in the vastness of space. After a while, Jason grew tired and went back to his tent. It was only once Will was alone that the humanoid creatures came for him. It started with a strange glowing light in the sky that hovered near their campsite before vanishing. Will felt frightened at the sight of it. He turned towards the tents to shout for Jason. But when he opened his mouth, Will didn't hear his own voice. He lost the power of speech. That was when he noticed that the nocturnal sounds of the forest around him had ceased. The world had gone silent. The campfire scared him most of all. The flames had frozen in place. Time was standing still. There was then a flash of light and Will blacked out. He woke up face down in the dirt outside of his tent, confused. Over time, Will's memories returned, and he finally remembered what had happened to him that night. He had been taken somewhere by strange gray humanoids with large black eyes. They tied him up and ran experiments on him, wiping his memory afterwards. But the memory wipe was unsuccessful. Will slowly put that night together in his mind, and now he fears going to sleep in case he wakes up and sees one of those terrifying gray faces again, staring down at him with evil intent. Screaming on a lonely road. Justine was driving over to her boyfriend's house late one night. They both lived in a rural area where homes were often separated by miles of trees and grasslands. That night, Justine realized that she was running low on gas and that she wouldn't have enough to get to her boyfriend's house. So she took a detour that she knew was along a particularly narrow and winding piece of country road towards the nearest gas station. About halfway along the road, Justine's headlights caught something up ahead. It looked like a person kneeling at the side of the road. They were crouched down in sort of a wrapped up fetal position. This alarmed Justine immediately, especially since she was so isolated and it was late at night. but she was worried that the person was injured, and as she approached slowly in her car, she could see that the figure was just that of a child. Justine pulled up just in front of the child and then slowly got out of the car. She was scared that it was a ploy and that someone would leap out of the darkness to grab her, but she had to make sure that the child was safe. The air felt cold, and Justine shivered as she stepped closer to the figure. It was still curled up into a ball, the head bowed. Just as she was within touching distance, the figure stood up. Justine couldn't believe what she was seeing. Somehow, the child was now over 6 feet tall. The creature had a human-like face, but something was off about it. It then screamed in a blood-curdling voice and rushed off into the wilderness. Justine has never driven on that road again. Would you? Footsteps. Kelly was a college student who lived at home with her parents. When the weekends came around, she had the same routine. She would just sit at her PC and play video games, often into the small hours of the night. One night, she got up from her desk, left her bedroom, and walked to the bathroom. Once she got there, she noticed that the window was open. This was unusual. Kelly looked out of the window into the night and could hear rain coming from outside. It began to grow heavier, and because the window was old and at a slant, the water was trickling into the bathroom. Reaching out, she tried to close the window, but it was so widely opened that she had to stand in the bathtub for some extra height and stretch as far as she could. As she grabbed the wet handle, she pulled backwards. That was when she heard it. From above her, she heard a thumping sound. It was like something was crashing down onto the roof. Kelly knew implicitly that it was too loud to be the rain. She could practically feel the thudding coming from through the walls. Looking out of the window, she stuck her head into the rain ever so slightly. Looking up, she saw something staring down at her. It was a tall humanoid figure standing on the roof. The figure rushed off away from Kelly as soon as it realized that it had been seen and leaped into the air, but it never came down. The figure vanished without a trace. Kelly's heart raced as she realized where the humanoid thing had been on the roof. It had been staring through the window of her 3-year-old sister's bedroom. Cat eyes. Diane was 12 years old and lying in bed one Christmas Eve. She couldn't wait for the morning and couldn't sleep. Lying there in the darkness, her attention was brought to the window at the foot of her bed. She got up and looked outside. There was an old oak tree that sat out there close to her window. She had seen it 1,000 times at night, but this time was different. Something was sitting in its branches, and it was staring back. As Diane's eyes adjusted to the dim moonlight, she suddenly realized that the thing staring at her was no animal. It was human-shaped, but it was gaunt and had large eyes with elongated pupils that were yellow. Diane was so frightened she barely moved. She didn't even scream. Eventually, the thing in the tree disappeared. Years later, Diane told her parents the story, and she assumed it was just a hallucination. But that was when things got really strange. Diane's mom and dad both had seen the same creature. First, the father had seen it as a boy when they lived in an old farmhouse. The creature was standing in the yard at night, looking up at his window. Diane's mom had it worse. When she had started dating Diane's dad, she was looking in the mirror one night when she noticed that someone was staring in through the window behind her. Turning around, she was confronted by a large, scaly humanoid figure with its face pressed up against the glass. It then ran off into the night. Though no one has been harmed yet, the creature has latched onto Diane's family and now will never leave them alone. Thank you so much for watching this video, and remember to follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MatthewSantoro, and be sure to join my Discord community at discord.gg/MatthewSantoro. I look forward to seeing you on both platforms, and I'll see you in the next video.